Good morning and good afternoon, everyone, and a warm welcome to the Impact webinar, Advancing Together, Lighting the Path for CCUS in Asia-Pacific. My name is Lin Zhang, content producer at Lead Associates, and it is my pleasure to be your host for today's session. Across Asia-Pacific, CCUS is moving into a more decisive phase. The region is no longer speaking only in terms of ambition. It is increasingly talking about delivery, how to build confidence, how to move projects toward execution, and how to connect policy, infrastructure, industry capability, and investment into something bankable and scalable. Today's webinar explores that journey from several practical angles, and we will hear perspectives on regional outlooks in uncertain times, Japan's cross-border shipping and partnership model, Indonesia's vision for storage hubs and self-sustaining CCS development, Thailand's early-stage national framework and the strategic role of CCUS in corporate growth, and the technology and subsurface capabilities needed to accelerate projects across Asia-Pacific. We are joined today by 6 distinguished speakers from Mackenzie, Mitsui O.S.K Lines, PT Pertamina, EGAT, Woodside Energy, and SLB. I encourage all of you to stay engaged throughout the program and to submit your questions in the Q&A box. We will have a short Q&A after each keynote, and while time may not allow us to address every question live, the discussion will help shape our continued engagement with the market. Please also note that this webinar is part of the virtual content series leading up to Carbon Capture APEC Summit 2026, which will take place on 8th to 9th July 2026 at MCEC Melbourne. As APEC's leading event for CCUS, CCAS 2026 will bring together governments, industry, finance, and technology leaders to discuss how the region can turn momentum into large-scale delivery. And we would like to extend our sincere thanks to the organizations supporting CCAS 2026. Our special appreciation goes to our energy transition partner sponsors, Woodside Energy and Shell, our pioneer project partner, Carbonate Project, our platinum sponsor, Avalanche, our gold sponsor, MSA, our silver sponsors, MODEC, Pentair, Low Emission Technology Australia, and Sparrow Earth, as well as our affiliate partner, Energy Industries Council, and our association partner, Korea CCUS Association. Their continued support helps create a platform for meaningful industry dialogue and collaboration. To open our program, it is a pleasure to welcome Mrs. Hetal Gandhi, Lead Global Forecasting and Asia-Pacific Research at Mackenzie. Hetal will begin by setting the wider context for today's discussion, looking at how Asia-Pacific's CCUS outlook is evolving at a time when markets remain dynamic, policy confidence is uneven, and investment discipline is tighter than ever. Now, Mr. Hetal, the stage is yours. Please turn on your camera and your microphone.
Yeah, thank you, Lynn, for the introductions, and welcome everyone to this session. I have just shared my screen, so I'll be taking the next few minutes to explain key trends that are emerging across the globe and Asia Pacific. I think the title for my topic that I'm covering is Accelerating Action in Uncertain Times, very apt for the current scenario where a global conflict is also set to cause jitters across the energy transition space. In line with that, what I plan to do is look at how FIDs are expected to transpire amid chaos that exists today. I'll also take you through a sentiment barometer in terms of how pipelines have behaved, and they stack up as compared to our forecast to 2035. Last but not the least, during such uncertain times, policy actions become increasingly more important, and therefore, key Asia-Pacific economies' positioning will become very important. So how Asia-Pacific economies are going to transpire in this entire space will also be equally important. Last, we will end up with what are going to be the key watch-out zones for Asia-Pacific over the next few quarters. Now, with this background, let me move ahead to my first slide. We plan to take you through the journey of FIDs over the past few years, as well as currently. For instance, if we look at FIDs, in my first chart, what I have put in is total capacities that are taking FID over the past few years, and what projects were due for FID in the initial or early part of the year, and how the nominal and the risk capacities actually stacked up in the early part of the year from 2023 to 2025. And finally, I also give out what is the actual capacity that took FID. Uh, Sorry, is there a question?
I think no. Just continue.
Okay. Okay, so a look at the last 3 years indicates that there is almost a 75 to 85% gap between projects that actually aspired to take FID on a nominal basis in the early part of the year to what actually took FID towards the end of the year. It also shows that if we look at risk capacities, which Wood Mackenzie tracks following a risking framework, also was almost 50% lower than nominal capacity. Uh, what this clearly indicates is that what is targeted to take FID versus what actually transpires is substantially lower. Now, for the next 3 years, when we look at capacities that are actually lined up to take FIDs, you can see two key trends emerging. One, in 2026, projects on a nominal basis itself that are targeting FIDs are substantially lower than what we saw in the beginning of 2025. So some kind of rationalization has already come up in the market. The gap between risk capacities and nominal capacities has actually gone down a bit, which means we are for 2026 a little more confident than what we were, say, in the previous years. And if we look at a stack of 3 years averages, then average risk capacity that is seeking FID over the next 3 years from 2026 to 2028 is more or less similar to average risk capacity that was seeking FID between 2023 to 2025. In line with that, we expect FIDs could be in the range of around 80 to 100 MTPA on an average over the next 3 years. But to come up to this conclusion, it is also important to look at, what is the flavor of the kind of projects that are going for FID? And therefore, is there a specific risk to the pipeline? So on the right-hand side, I have tried to put the same FID matrix for the same number of years by business models, hubs, hub users, and standalone players. Hubs are players typically, which are storage guys, but there are also some emitter hubs which get included over here. There are, for instance, large emitter hubs which are emerging in Singapore, scale-based emitter hubs which are also emerging in economies like Japan. I have color-coded these hubs by the region to which they belong. So projects that are seeking FID for the respective years in the hub category are shown by the color codes. Then you have hub users. These are predominantly emitters that capture carbon and then transport it to the hubs. So it's a hub and spoke model that is being followed between them. And then there are integrated standalone players that basically target FIDs and are looking at capturing their own emissions and storing it in mostly their own storage assets. So by these three business models, when you look at region level stakes, there are again a few conclusions that emerge. First, hub-based projects are targeting FIDs much more than hub users and standalone. This is a typical dilemma where in economies like North America, where Class 6 permits are elongated, hubs target FIDs faster because there is a delay in terms of their commissioning, depending upon the permits that get issued, and as a result of which, they want to fathom up or build up their capacities much faster even before the hub users actually come in. So hubs continue to dominate projects that are targeting to take FID. Please note that past year's data from 2023 to 2025 shows actual projects that took FID in the hubs category by regions, whereas from 2026 to 2028 shows risk capacity outlined by Wood Mackenzie that is targeting FID. So you can see that North America and Europe are predominant regions where hub-based capacities are targeting FIDs over the next 3 years. We are also seeing that beyond 2026, in 2027 and 2028, there are hub-based capacities in Asia-Pacific also that is targeting FIDs. Please note that in the past, there are some hub-based capacities, especially from the Middle Eastern region, that has taken FID, but in the future, for hubs, there are hardly any capacities which are lined up for FID. Now, hub users also shows a similar trend. North America, Europe dominate capacities that are seeking FID. Middle East is a very small proportion of total projects which are actually seeking FID over the next 3 years. However, there are some Middle Eastern capacities which have taken FID over the past 3 years, which might be under construction at the moment. And, there might be a risk emanating over there. But all in all, North America and Europe continues to dominate even hub users that are seeking FID in 2026 to 2028. Standalone projects also have enough momentum. In fact, projects that took FID in 2025 on a standalone basis actually showed a drop and were predominantly concentrated in North America. We now see Europe-based standalone projects and even Asia-Pacific-based standalone projects to gather momentum, and they are looking to seek FID over the next 3 years. So North America and Europe will be crucial for FIDs over the next 3 years, and hub-based projects will dominate FIDs that are seeking or projects that are seeking FID over the next 3 years. After having seen this, it is also important to look at what's happening in hub users, because it is finally these users that would actually store in the hubs. And therefore, is there momentum building up over there? So what I did is I looked at total operating capacity for global hub users, and I also and split them by emitting sources. I also looked at projects that have taken FID between 2023 and 2025 and projects which are seeking FID over the next 3 years and split them by emitting sources. You can see that FID, which is being already taken, has a unique trend emerging. In the operating capacity, natural gas-based CCS projects dominate global operating capture capacity at 60%. Projects that have taken FID also has natural gas dominating at around 40%. That is closely followed by blue hydrogen projects, and very less or non-scale-based projects are seen in sectors like power, cement, even engineered removals to be which are being tested. However, when you look at projects that are seeking FID between 2026 to 2028, the dynamics globally are changing. Natural gas production and processing are reducing to just 25% of the total projects which are seeking to take FID. And within that, hydrogen and power are gaining significant dominance. So not only are we seeing a trend where projects under capture capacities are seeing a multifold increase in terms of total number of projects which are seeking FID on a risk basis, but we are also seeing a shift in terms of sector level dynamics, taking shape. Now, moving ahead from here, Asia Pacific is uniquely paced with projects spread across countries seeking FID. So if we zoom in into how this same math looks for Asia Pacific, again, there are very differentiated trends which are emerging. On the left, for instance, I have put country level spread of projects that are seeking FID, and you can see the light blue bars or the bright blue bars indicate over the past 3 years which countries have actually dominated projects that took FID. China, Indonesia, followed by Thailand, and some small projects in South Korea actually dominated the space. However, if we look at FID capacity that is targeted over the next few years, you can see that countries like Japan, Australia, Indonesia, and Malaysia are taking center stage. There are even projects in Singapore and India that are coming up for FID seeking. Now, of course, we saw in the previous slides that how all projects that actually come up for FID don't take up, but the fact that there are enough number of projects which are spread out across economies shows that there is a lot of momentum that is building up in other Asia-Pacific countries as well. Further, if we look at just capture capacities, we can see that Asia Pacific at an operating capacity level is no different, with natural gas-based resources actually dominating the 19 MTPA equivalent of operating capture capacity that is in place today. It also has dominated, projects that have taken FID in 2023 to 2025. But please note, apart from that, there are refining and chemicals projects which have taken FID, and that is followed by hydrogen and power projects. So hydrogen and power projects, unlike global counterparts, are actually a lesser share of projects which have taken FID in Asia Pacific. Within 2026 to 2028, the trend is more starker. Natural gas production and processing continues to remain a dominant part. So you will see a lot of standalone projects in Asia Pacific, which are focusing on natural gas production that will continue to dominate FIDs. There are specific emitter hubs which have multiple emitters classified under others, which are also coming up for FID. And then you have hydrogen and some refining and chemical projects which are dominating FID space between 2026 to 2028. So natural gas production and processing will make it easier for FIDs to actually happen as they are low cost. Second, widespread FIDs across countries is making things much more easier. Now, having looked at the FID space, it is important to understand how does this compare with our forecast. The Middle Eastern crisis is dominating talks around forecast. If you look at our unrisked capacity at a global level, we have a pipeline built up of around 686 MTPA of announced capacities. Of course, they are substantially higher than our forecast. If you also look at the risk pipeline broken up by regions, we have a pipeline of almost 385 plus MTPA as a part of the total pipeline that is building up for 2035. The more interesting part is North America and Europe are dominating more than 50% of that pipeline, followed by Asia Pacific. The total Middle East pipeline is around 30 MTPA, which is expected to be directly impacted. And therefore, the risk to our overall pipeline is less than 10%. Please note that our current global capture capacity forecast stands at around 435 MTPA, a notch higher than our risk pipeline. Do we believe there is vulnerability to this forecast number? Answer is a yes. But we do believe that it will take time for somebody to crystallize what kind of impact can one see, and we are building up scenarios around that. If the conflict is short-lived, then we will see that the abilities of economies to absorb energy prices would be faster. Extent of government support that will be needed to rebuild economies will be lesser, and that will then change priorities towards energy transition technologies. But if the conflict continues to remain elevated and long-tailed, then the risk to the forecast will be much higher. But immediate risk to the forecast is limited, given that the Middle East pipeline is very limited. Please do remember that there would be ripple effect of higher energy prices on projects which are under construction and which are taking FID, which may elongate the cycle. So the curve of the cycle to the forecast might be different, but there may be, again, limited risk to the overall forecast. Now, during this uncertain times, when we are talking about forecast, policies become all the more crucial. I have therefore put in some summary from our recently released policy report for Asia Pacific. We assess policies across Asia Pacific region for most of the high weight emission countries, and we give them a scoring across a 8-point parameter scale. Average APAC score is around 1.76 on readiness to adapt CCUS, whereas global average is around 2. And the good part is that you can see large number of countries that have now moved in Asia Pacific above that global average of 2 times. So there are equal number of countries that are progressing well in CCUS policy readiness, whereas there are a number of others that lag behind. If we look at average CCUS APAC policy score, on the right-hand side at a parameter level, we can see that Asia Pacific is neck to neck to global scores on setting up national target for CCUS. However, it might be lagging behind in its NDC targets and also carbon pricing regimes, as well as ability to provide incentives. Most lag is seen in also regulatory framework for network infrastructure, which is specifically for building shipping and transport pipelines, and also storage policies being in place. So it is pretty clear which part of the circle is Asia Pacific countries expected to focus more over the next few years. But there is clear progress that is happening. For instance, we have seen Japan's policy scores move up thanks to advanced CCUS projects, around 9 of them progressing. We are seeing that the government has also given specific leeways in terms of permitting licenses, and they now have a CFD scheme in space, which is expected to invite bids very soon, thus upping up their policy score. We also are foreseeing that there would be carbon pricing equivalent schemes that would be live in Japan in 2026, further supporting policy scores. We have also seen over the last 2 years policy scores in Malaysia and Indonesia expanding, with they actually setting up their entire regulatory framework for CCUS policies to be in place. India has announced an incentive budget of around $2.2 billion, spread over a period of 5 years, and has also started taking steps towards making the CCTS scheme live and having intensity target for the top 9 sectors. So progress is happening in the laggard countries as well. These will continue to remain watch out areas for countries. I think the next steps for most countries in Asia Pacific would be how they handle government incentives, especially in the current uncertain times, and how carbon pricing regimes progress in these countries, or the stringency with which those carbon pricing regimes are being implemented. Combination of this with countries like Australia, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Singapore setting up their cross-border readiness would determine a lot of traction in FIDs for projects over the next few quarters. The last slide that I have put in is calling out the key watch out zones that will influence forecast in Asia Pacific. One, capital and OPEX cost for CCUS are expected to be influenced amid rising energy prices. The real stabilization of energy prices will show sensitivity to that. Carbon prices, reaction of carbon prices, and country policies to energy transition will also determine what happens to CCUS adoption. So our eyes are glued on that part of the value chain. Players that have strong exposure towards storage projects set in are also oil and gas players. These players will balance between capital discipline, business investments, and energy transition goals. How this pans out will be influenced by the extent of their cash flows that are influenced because of the Middle East conflict. And therefore, our eyes are on what players are evolving to do. Last but not the least, a general uncertain environment will result into an immediate impact on pipeline progress, delays in FIDs and under construction projects, which we are monitoring on a real-time basis. So that wraps up our presentation on what should one expect globally and from Asia Pacific in the medium term. Open to questions. So in case of no questions, I will pass it over to Lynn. Thank you.
Now, thank you for helping us framing, this bigger picture. Your remarks highlighted why CCUS in Asia Pacific must be understood not only as a decarbonization tool, but also as a question of timing, competitiveness, and regional coordination. So let's welcome our second speaker, Ms. Yuji Aibara, Deputy General Manager of Carbon Solution Development Unit at Mitsui O.S.K. Lines. Ms. Yuji's presentation focuses on how innovation and partnership are shaping Japan's CCUS leadership across Asia. Drawing on MOL's growing role across the value chain, he will show how shipping, liquefied carbon dioxide carrier development, and cross-border collaboration can help unlock a practical regional CCUS network. Now, Ms. Yuji, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Let me share the screen. Oh, can you see it?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, so let's start. First of all, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to present MOL's view on Japan's CCS leadership across Asia. We understand this is a pre-event of Carbon Capture APAC Summit 2026, which will be held in July at Melbourne, Australia. So to start my presentation, let me introduce the company I work for. The company is Mitsui O.S.K. Lines. In short, we call it MOL. Its headquarters is based in Tokyo, Japan. So the slide shows the key numbers for you to understand MOL at a glance. We are proud to say that MOL is one of the largest shipping companies in the world. We cover almost all types of the ships, including offshore floating unit and LNG FSRU. And we will soon start to cover liquefied CO2 carriers from 2028 onwards. That is for Northern Lights project in Norway. One of our strengths lies in expertise of large liquefied gas carriers, backed up by the largest LNG carrier fleet in the world, and its long track record of operation and management. Many of our LNG ships trade between Australia and Japan. MOL's fleet of ships trade globally, and we are route agnostic. So let's move on to today's topic, CCUS. So there's no existing cross-border CCS value chain in Asia-Pacific yet. As a shipping company, our core service is to provide the liquefied CO2 transportation by ship. However, we aim to contribute to other parts of value chain through capital alliance or any other form of partnership. This slide shows examples of the companies that we are working with or worked with to create CCS value chain together. Particularly in view of recent acquisition of LVC, which is Europe-based tank terminal company, we believe that MOL as a group can contribute to CCS value chain by providing the combined service of CO2 shipping and terminal, which should enhance the efficiency of shipping and terminal operation. Also, we are members of CCS-related organizations and have taken part in many studies related to CCS. Now move on to the next slide. This slide shows our key milestones of CCUS business development. In March 2021, we have invested in Larvik Shipping, who has been transporting liquefied CO2 by ship for more than 35 years for food and beverage industry. Since then, we are at full speed for the creation of CCUS value chain. And among these key milestones, I would like to introduce our recent contract award of Time Charter Party and shipbuilding contract for Northern Lights Project Phase 2 on the next slide. So in January 2026, MOR has signed long-term charter contract with Northern Lights for 2 newly built LCO2 carriers and shipbuilding contract with HD Hyundai Heavy Industries in Korea. These ships will have 12,000 cubic meters tank capacity each for CO2 transportation at medium pressure and medium temperature. We are very much excited to participate in and contribute to the world-first cross-border CCS project, and we will leverage our learning and experience gained through this project to coming CCS projects in Asia-Pacific region in the nearest future. Hopefully, the first one should start sometime between 2030 and 2032. Now, let me introduce the technical side of development in MOL. This slide shows our key milestones of technical development for CO2 transportation. I'd like to introduce 3 achievements here. The first one is an acquisition of AIP, approval in principle, from Class NK and ABS for CO2 carriers with a cargo tank capacity of 23,000 cubic meters and 50,000 cubic meters. Both are based on low temperature and low pressure. This work is a result of the collaborations by Japanese maritime industry cluster, including Japanese trading house, Mitsui and Mitsubishi, and also Japanese shipping companies, NYK and K-Line. The second highlight is the acquisition of general approval for ship application by Jules Nautica for the design of CO2 ship with 62,000 cubic meters tank capacity. Jules Nautica is a joint venture with Petronas and MISC, which we have established in June 2025. We share the vision and the value of CC realization in APAC together with Petronas and MISC. Please note, GASA is more advanced stage of ship design than AIP. You will need to submit more detailed ship design drawings to Classification Society to acquire GASA. Through this process, together with our partners, our understanding of large-scale LCO2 transportation at low pressure and low temperature conditions has dramatically deepened and improved. We believe this kind of cross-industry collaboration is necessary to create CCS value chain at this stage. Lastly, I'd like to highlight our world-first AIP acquisition on methanol CO2 dual-purpose carrier with Mitsubishi Shipbuilding. I'd like to come back to this topic later. So far, I'm quite promoting MOL, and I really appreciate your patience to listening to. Now, let me move to key issues for cross-border CCS development. This slide shows our understanding and interpretation IEA World Energy Outlook issued in 2022, 2023, 2024, and 2025 as to how the environment of policy, investment, technology, and society in relation to CCUS have evolved over the years. While you may have a different view and interpretation, I think most of you would agree that we still have a lot to do to realize CCUS, especially for a company to make the investment decision in CCS projects. The economic viability is the most important issue for CCUS for a company to make an investment decision. Currently, the total accumulated cost for CCS is higher than carbon price. This means some kind of government support, such as cost for difference, is necessary for company to make an investment decision. While such governmental support is essential at the initial stage for CCS, we cannot expect it to continue forever. We need to drive the CCS costs down to make it economically viable and sustainable. And we think standardization is one of the realistic solutions to reduce the CCS cost. It has two aspects. It has two aspects. One is CO2 specification, and another is CO2 ship design specification. It's been a while since the industry has identified the risk associated with CO2 spec, such as corrosion risk. Yet, we are not able to find a technical solution. Maybe it would be worthwhile looking into this issue to find a commercial solution, such as risk allocation and risk sharing, in case unexpected corrosion is found. Certainly, we shouldn't make this specification issue a showstopper of CCS projects to happen. CO2 shipping, as such, can be bankable, we believe, but the value chain right now is not bankable, and all stakeholders need to work together to allocate the risk and make projects bankable. Another aspect is CO2 ship design specification. Due to constraints such as shipbuilding capacity, the optimal ship design for certain projects does not always lead to cost optimization. To ensure efficient project implementation and reduce shipping costs, JOGMEC established Council for discussion on common specification in LCO2 ship transportation value chain in 2024. In parallel, especially in APAC, the discussion about carbon price should be matured to align across countries and governments, and this will provide the indicative target costs that industries should achieve in the long run. Finally, let me introduce initiatives for Japan CCS project. As we have seen, the further cost down is necessary for CO2 to become economically sustainable. JOGMEC, together with METI, is taking an initiative of standardizing CCS value chain. In May 2025, JOGMEC published guidelines for setting common specifications in liquefied CO2 ship transportation value chain based on low pressure and low temperature conditions. Further works are ongoing, especially in the areas of CO2 specification and CO2 flow rate. MOL is supporting this work through its participation. While we believe the cost reduction is important, we also believe that value creation is equally important. Hence, we are developing the dual-purpose ship for CO2 and other cargo, such as methanol. For the dedicated CO2 ship, the ship always needs to sail empty on a return voyage. By making her for dual purpose for CO2 and methanol, the ship can sail with CO2 cargo on one way and with methanol on way back, which will dramatically improve the economics with transportation in certain cases, as far as we studied. As explained, MOL is committed to realize the CCS value chain in APAC, while we feel a headwind toward decarbonization business in general right now. We believe such wind direction will change again. Therefore, we will continue our effort to realize CCUS. We are always looking for opportunities where we can collaborate and contribute. So please reach out to us if you have any opportunities. And I hope to see many of you in person at Carbon Capture APAC Summit in July in Melbourne. Thank you very much. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yuji. Your presentation shows that cross-border CCUS will depend not only on the vision, but on real logistics capability, technical standardization, and long-term commercial partnerships. It was especially valuable to hear how MOL is developing liquefied carbon dioxide shipping solutions, working on common specifications, and positioning maritime transport as a key enabler of future regional value chains. And now we are inviting questions from the audiences. So, question one, what is the biggest roadblock to successful CCS projects in APAC?
Thank you very much for the questions. Actually, it is difficult to identify one because all the challenges are interconnected in the CCS value chain. However, one of the biggest challenges we think is a risk allocation across the value chain. While various working groups are presently in progress in different countries, a full value chain discussion is yet to commence, which will allow a clear understanding of the risk allocation and financial exposure, which eventually make the CCS project bankable. Thank you. That's my answer.
So we've got another question from our audiences. So from MOL's perspective, what are the most relevant lessons from Europe's cross-border CCS experiences for APAC, and which of them are actually transferable?
Well, yeah, thank you very much for the question. From the Norway and the UK model, I think what was successful was collaborative efforts between governments, private sectors, financial institutions, insurance companies, and the project developers to successfully achieve the world's first maritime CCS projects. Key to this is government funding. And while Asia-Pacific region does present its own challenges, given the cross-border nature, longer distance, and larger volumes, the core intent is, I think, is the same: to decarbonize hard-to-abate industries. So the collaboration across the value chain is a key to realizing projects in APAC, and that is what we learned from the European projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Yuji. Now, let's just move on to our next speaker. So it is now my pleasure to welcome Ms. Alessandra, Vice President, Technology Innovation, Upstream, and Low Carbon at PT Pertamina. Mr. Ali will speak on Indonesia's pathway toward becoming a self-sustaining CCS and CCUS player in Asia-Pacific, including how Pertamina is linking domestic decarbonization needs with the development of broader regional storage hub potential. Now, Mr. Lee, please turn on your camera and microphone, and the stage is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Lin.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to be here and share Pertamina perspective on building a self-sustainable CCS and CCUS ecosystem in the Asia-Pacific region. Today, I will share how Pertamina is positioning CCS and CCUS as both a decarbonization solution and strategic opportunity for regional collaboration and growth. Okay, maybe next slide. Okay, next slide. Okay, in terms of the dual growth strategy, Pertamina play a dual role, not only as an energy company, but also as a strategic instrument of the Indonesian government. We are mandated to support energy self-sufficiency in line with Indonesia long-term vision of Indonesia Emas 2045, while also addressing climate change. This means we must ensure energy security while reducing carbon emissions. CCS and CCUS are key technologies that allow us to bridge these objectives. Their key driver are shaping this transformation, change in the energy mix, geological uncertainty, and the need to reduce emission. Indonesia has committed to net zero emission by 2060 or sooner. Here, Pertamina responds through a dual growth strategy. We strengthen our existing energy business while developing low-carbon solutions such as geothermal, biofuel, and CCUS. This allows us to maintain energy security, affordability, and sustainability at the same time. Next slide. In terms of CCS and net zero emission, Indonesia is one of the largest emitters globally, contributing about 2.3% of global emissions. The energy sector accounts for more than half of the national emissions, driven by power generation, transportation, and industrial activities. At the same time, energy is essential for economic growth. This creates challenge how to reduce emission without slowing development. CCS provide a practical solution. Indonesia has around 7.3 gigaton of CO2 storage capacity. Pertamina targets for CCS injection around 2032 with initial capacity about 7 million ton per year. Next slide. In terms of CCS development model, there are two main approaches. First, a national model focused on domestic emitter, offering efficiency but requiring high investment. Second, a regional hub model where Indonesia serves multiple emitters across Asia-Pacific. This enables shared investment and faster scaling, but require stronger regulation and coordination. Indonesia has established the regulation foundation to support both approaches through two ministerial regulation and one presidential regulation. This regulation provides a clear legal framework for CCS implementation, both within and beyond oil and gas working areas. Next slide. In terms of the CCS initiative, Pertamina has identified multiple CCS and CCUS projects across Indonesia. These include refinery, industrial cluster, and oil and gas field. In total, there are 12 potential project locations supported by significant storage capacity. For example, in South Sumatra, biomass BECCS is being explored in the pulp industry cluster. In West Java and East Java, several CCUS projects are being developed around oil and gas field. In East Kalimantan, CCS hubs are being considered in Kutai Basin, supporting industrial cluster in Balikpapan and Bontang. Additionally, the Masela block is also evaluating CCS integrating in its development concept. This shows CCS is already in development, not just a future concept. Okay, next slide. In terms of the regional CCS hub, Indonesia has strong potential to become a regional CCS hub. Countries like Japan, South Korea, and Singapore have limited storage capacity, while Indonesia has large geological potential. Their major CCS hubs are currently being studied. First, Aceh Basin, with more than 2 gigaton of storage potential. Then Kutai Basin, with over 100 million ton capacity, and also in Central Sulawesi Basin, with more than 200 million tons capacity. By connecting these hubs with regional CO2 transport infrastructure, Indonesia could provide carbon storage services for the Asia-Pacific region. Next slide. In the case of CO2 EOR, enhanced oil recovery in the Sukawati oil field, CCUS can also enhance oil recovery in the Sukawati field. CO2 injection can increase recovery by up to 13%. The injection program is planned to run for approximately 17 years, with injection rate between 10 to 30 million standard cubic feet per day. Initial injection tests have been successfully conducted. First, a half and puff injection test in December 2023. Second, an interval CO2 injection test in October 2024. Importantly, no formation damage or productivity loss has been observed during this injection. Moving forward, the program will continue toward full cycle CO2 injection, utilizing supply from the nearest gas plant. This demonstrates that CCUS can deliver both environmental and economic benefit. Next slide. Turning to the CCS value chains, Pertamina is building an integrated system for capture through transport and storage to carbon monetization. By leveraging our position across upstream, midstream, and downstream, Pertamina is able to develop this value chain in a more coordinated and efficient way. Our roadmap is structured in 3 phases. In short term, we focus on building capability through study and pilot project. In the medium term, we scale up clusters and infrastructure. And in the long term, we aim to become a regional CCS hub integrator in the Asia-Pacific. In closing, CCS and CCUS are essential for achieving net zero emission while maintaining energy security. Pertamina is committed to building domestic CCUS capability and positioning Indonesia as a key carbon storage in Asia-Pacific. With strong collaboration, CCUS can become a driver of sustainable economic growth. Thank you for your attention. This is the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Ali. Your presentation offers a very clear view of how Pertamina is approaching CCS as both a national decarbonization tool and a future low-carbon business opportunity. We heard how the company is advancing multiple domestic initiatives, how Indonesia's regulatory framework is evolving, and how major hub opportunities such as Asari, Kutai, and Central Sulawesi could support both domestic and cross-border emissions. With that, let's move to our audience's questions. So, question 1, how do you see Indonesia's balancing domestic decarbonization needs versus becoming a hub for imported carbon dioxide?
Okay, thank you for the question. From Pertamina's perspective, CCS is currently viewed primarily as an upstream business opportunity, which require a clear and sustainable revenue mechanism to scale. In that context, the concept of Indonesia becoming a regional hub for imported CO2 could develop earlier, as cross-border emitter often have stronger policy driver, and more established carbon pricing, enabling them to pay for storage services. At the same time, Indonesia has defined clear national priorities aligned with its net zero emission and NDC target. Under Presidential Regulation Number 14, CO2 storage allocation is structured through a 70-30 scheme designed to balance domestic needs with cross-border opportunities. For domestic decarbonization, Pertamina is actively collaborating with various industry to explore CCS application, including blue ammonia and BECCS, as initial pathway to to activate CCS deployment in Indonesia, which lead to a pragmatic approach where cross-border CO2 can help catalyze early CCS hub development, while continue progress in domestic policy, incentives, and industrial collaboration will be essential to scale Indonesia on decarbonization effort. That's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. So our next question is, what are the biggest issues you see in CCUS project development?
Okay. There are three key challenges in CCUS project development. First, economics. CCUS is highly capital intensive, while carbon pricing and monetization mechanism are still not fully mature, creating uncertainty for investor. In the case of CCUS, particularly CO2 EOR, while it offers additional value through incremental oil production, the key challenge is ensuring that the incremental recovery can justify the upfront investment. This makes field selection, injection, reliable connectivity to CO2 source critical important. Second, infrastructure CCUS require a fully integrated value chain from capture to transport and storage, and building this ecosystem takes time and strong coordination. And challenge the third, regulation and alignment, including geopolitics and commitment. Cross-border CCS require clear framework for CO2 transport, reliability, and long-term storage. At the same time, differences in national interests and uneven commitment among stakeholders can slow down the progress. Therefore, the real challenge in CCUS is not the technology itself, but how we align policy, investment, and long-term commitment in a consistent way. That's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ali. So due to time constraint, I saw there is a question for you in the chat box. So if you could type your answers to that, that would be great. And now we are moving to our next speaker. So our fourth speaker is Mr. Arin from Director of the Power Plant Engineering Division and Vice Chair of the EGAT CCUS Working Group at Electricity Generating Authority of Thailand. So Mr. Arin will share Thailand's early CCUS journey and explain how national planning, alliance building, and the technical readiness are beginning to lay the groundwork for the future deployment. Now, Ms. Arin, it's your turn, please.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Colin. Good afternoon in Melbourne. Actually, here in Thailand, right now in the morning time. Depending on where you are joining from, good day for you. I'm Alin Temiakun, Director of Power Plant Engineering and Vice Chairman of EGAT Working Group for EGAT. Just to be live with the topic, we're talking about Thailand's CCUS initiative for sustainable futures. This is not just only an initiative for EGAT only. I would like to mention that the Thailand, considering as the early stage concerning with CCUS development project. So I would like to lay out the background and the structure of what we have been implemented here in Thailand. We're starting with the Thailand Climate Goals Acceleration Action, building the foundation, policy opportunity, and the projects. Next slide, please. In my presentation, I would say that this information as a whole picture of Thailand, I should respect to the information from Thailand CCUS Alliance, which is a combination of the partners in every sectors regarding here in Thailand getting involved. The first one, of course, this is more important. Thailand committed to carbon neutrality by 2050. Actually, a net zero greenhouse by 2065, as you may know. But the ambitious, but we know that we need to align with the global push toward net zero by 2050. So this is quite challenge for Thailand. Next one, please. The energy sector is the biggest challenge. As you may know that IGAT is the state-owned enterprise, but we are in the part of energy sector. So as you may know that the biggest challenge is the power sector or energy sector is the biggest emitter. So we think that our roles and projects that we're going to move on, we should focusing on the energy and the total gas. Sorry, something wrong with the presentation. Okay, just to proceed. The energy sector is our biggest challenge, as I mentioned. Forests are one another huge part of the picture. They could absorb around 118 million tons. So between cutting emission and boosting natural sinks, we are building a strong path toward net zero, and CCUS will be key to filling the gaps. If you're taking a look at the AU business as usual, we have about 318 million carbon equivalent, and we expect to get the reduction by unconditioned target about 70%, and the condition target about 30%. The energy sector, of course, we have emitted about 65 million tons of carbon. This quite challenge, as I mentioned earlier. Next one, please. So we think that by building the foundation, we need to do something, not just only one organization, but we need to starting more cooperation between the partner among the partners here in Thailand. So as you may know that we have the target here, and we still have the gaps to moving on this. Next one, please. Okay. We're talking about the NDC 3.0, which is road to the net zero by 2030. The NDC 3.7 is Thailand second updated climate pledge under the Paris Agreement. The cabinet approved end of last year. It set Thailand to national greenhouse gas mitigation and adaptation commitment for 2031 and 2035, aligned with the 1.5 degrees Celsius pathway and Thailand net zero ambition. Of course, we have to reduce 47% reduction of net gas greenhouse gas emission by 2035. As you next one, please. in order to move forward, we have set the alliance working team. As I mentioned earlier, that the Thailand CCUS alliance gathering together as a partner members. Their composition with the energy sector, the industrial sector, non-profit sector, and government sector working together in each part. We have building up the implementation tool of CCUS just to reinforce each cooperation. Next one, please. The policy and regulation foundation for CCUS, we have a technical roadmap, and we are quite concrete in the CCUS related legislation reviews. We are moving forward for legal and regulation setting up for the country. Next one, please. We have come up to the potential CCUS implementation in Thailand. As I mentioned earlier, that members of TCCA has implemented, implemented numbers of projects. For example, like project in eastern part of Thailand, which belong to PTT, has implemented the first project of Arctic project that they are expected to get the storage of the carbon offshore in the Gulf of Thailand. This one is one of the biggest step that we have here in Thailand. For IGAT, of course, we are from the energy sector, and we are one of the carbon emitters. So we have a couple of projects. Right now, we have setting up the CCUS master plan. The first project is we setting the pre-feasibility study of carbon capture for Myanmar project, coal-fired project, power plant project in northern part of Thailand. And then we expect that we could be able to find the potential storage area at the intermediate part of the Thailand, in northern part of Thailand as well. This is one of the example that we have getting improve the initiative for projects here in Thailand. Next one, please. As you can see, the Thailand CCUS roadmap toward net zero, we have numbers of partners in the TCCA, and the milestone and this step moving on each activity has been listed as shown in the presentation. As I mentioned, we are quite in the early stage. So we have none of the completed project or pilot project that can demonstrate during this presentation. So I would lay out the background and the update information of the whole picture of CCUS here in Thailand for this presentation. Next one, please. I quite a bit advanced. Here is the information of first CCUS demonstration project in Thailand, as I mentioned, and the Carbon Capture and Storage Hub initiative. This could be the one of the jigsaw that the whole picture of CCUS will be set up here in Thailand. We expect to get a concrete CCS hub here in Thailand because, as you mentioned earlier, that these CCS cannot be implemented just only one organization. This one is considered as the national project. So this project is one of the biggest step that we moving forward on this milestone. Next one, please. Key activities for TCCA members has been done during the past couple years. As you may see that our partner has been cooperate with many of alliance internationally and of course in Thailand as well. Next one, please. Key challenges for CCUS development. We need a clear policy and regulation and storage potential assessment, financing and investment mechanism. We need to get this done in much more clearer picture of the whole Thailand country. Last thing is very important is the infrastructure development. We expect to get the whole picture of transport and storage at the CCS hub here in Thailand. And the next step will be much more easier to start. Yeah, next one, please. Okay, I think I would complete all the information that I need to convey this to the audience. As I mentioned, that Thailand is the country relatively first step of the project. So in this webinar, I would not mention a lot about the first project initiative project. Okay, thank you very much. That's all for my presentation.
Many thanks, Mr. Ring. Your remarks give us a useful picture of what it means to build CCUS from the ground up, aligning climate goals, creating a national value chain framework, strengthening regulatory foundations, and investing in expert capacity. It was particularly encouraging to hear how Thailand is moving from concept toward feasibility, storage studies, and infrastructure preparation. And now we now welcome questions from the audiences. So question 1. From a utility perspective, do you think the role of CCUS in the power sector is still underestimated, or is the market not quite ready yet?
Yes, very good question. From EGAP perspective, the role of CCUS in power sector is both underestimated and not yet fully market ready. And these two realities coexist. CCUS is often underestimated because the net zero transition is widely perceived as the relying mainly on renewable energy, which tend to downplay the importance of the dispatchable generation or what we call system flexibility. At the same time, CCUS is not yet ready for market perspective. As current technology remain capital intensive and costly, as well as the whole chains of CCUS system. So not all the countries sufficient diversity of renewable resource to rely on renewable alone without affecting the system ability stability. Therefore, IGAP view that CCUS as a strategic transition enabler. We should both moving to review and re-estimated, and then what we have to make the market ready for the whole picture of the country's CCUS strategy. Yeah, this is my question. My answer to your question, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Ring. And due to time constraints, we've got another two speakers waiting. So shall we move on to our next speaker? Thank you. Thank you so much. So now, next we are pleased to welcome Ms. Andrew Nicholas, General Manager, CCS and Woodside Energy. Andrew's keynote will turn the conversation toward corporate lens, looking at carbon management as a growth strategy and exploring how CCUS can support competitive advantage and scalable business development. Hi, Ms. Andrew.
Okay, thank you for the introduction.
Thank you.
Yeah, look, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. Andrew Nichols, General Manager, Carbon Capture and Storage at Woodside Energy. So I'd like to start by thanking the organisers for the invitation to participate, and also to everyone who's made the time to dial in, and of course the fellow presenters. They've been very interesting and informative presentations so far. Look, very much in line with the webinar subject, I think the question here is how can carbon management move from what is sometimes feels like a cost obligation to a source of true competitive advantage and growth? And look, we think CCS is cost effective in many development scenarios, and certainly hard to abate sectors. And I think has been well described today, it's going to be necessary to practically achieve net zero.
Hi, Ms.
What's
Andrew.
clear from our perspective? Oh, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. Are you gonna share your slides yourself, or we gonna play the slides?
So I understand the conference has the slides, so I was expecting you would share them, but if that's problematic,
right. We can share
sure.
them. We can share them.
Okay. Well, while you bring them up, I'll continue. I'll just walk through the opening remarks here. And look, from our perspective, what is clear is that in the long run, scale will ultimately drive down cost. And for that reason, we do see the need for multiple large-scale hubs in the APAC region. And in fact, I think having multiple hubs makes a lot of sense if we want to establish an industry that ultimately has a liquid market and meet the needs of our international trading partners, and certainly from an Australian perspective, help to support domestic companies within Australia who are looking to decarbonise. And look, I think this is all reflected in the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change in their Management of Change report, which does note that CCS has been recognised as critical mitigation to reduce emissions from large-scale industrial sources, and noting that current rates of deployment, which I think has been well articulated in the opening presentation as well, potentially well below what's required for 1.5 or 2 degree scenarios. So look, just before we step into the slides, the key message I'll leave you with is that scale, we believe, drives down cost. As a result, we think hubs will be able to unlock scale. And we do think that early movers here will be able to create a long-term advantage for themselves. Okay, if I could ask you to go to the next slide. So we'll just step through the 2 disclaimer slides here. Great, we'll go to this one. So at Woodside, decarbonisation is not separate from our core business. It's very much embedded in how we think about long-term value creation. And Woodside brings nearly 40 years of experience delivering complex, capital-intensive offshore projects safely, as well as reliably. And the same subsurface project delivery, operational capability are directly transferable to carbon capture and storage. So as a result, CCS is not something that we view as speculative. We approach it with the same discipline and process that we apply to our large-scale gas developments or our liquefied natural gas projects. And there's three key elements to our overall low carbon strategy. So the first is customer collaboration. So we do work very closely with customers all the way through the value chain to make sure that we really understand demand, timing, aggregation opportunities, what their specific needs are for decarbonisation, as well as the needs of the policy environment that they operate in. Secondly, Woodside looks at new energy products, so that's the likes of hydrogen and ammonia, leveraging the experience that we have as a safe and reliable energy producer. And some may have heard of Beaumont Ammonia project, which will become low carbon when the CCS service comes online shortly. And then thirdly, we look at integrated carbon solutions, which includes carbon capture and storage. And our intent there is to make sure that we can decarbonise our own assets, but then also provide a service to other users who are looking for a means to decarbonise. And we think that what matters across the combination of these is optionality. So building these platforms early so that they can be scaled as the policy matures and ultimately the demand emerges, rather than just looking at individual point source solutions. All right, I'll get you to go to the next slide. So look, a little bit of an overview of our Australian portfolio. So Woodside holds interests in several CCS permits as well as project opportunities across Australia as well as more broadly. Woodside is the operator of the Angel CCS project, and we are progressing that with our joint venture partners, which include Shell, BP, Chevron, and Mimi, which is Mitsui and Mitsubishi. We're also a participant in the Bonaparte CCS project. That one is led by Impex, and we're in a joint venture with Total Energies on that project. We are also participating in the Esso-operated CCS project in Southeast Australia. We're also a participant in a greenhouse gas permit offshore Onslow that is currently being operated by Chevron. So look, Australia, we believe, does have some clear advantages for CCS, particularly when it comes to transboundary CO2 services. And first and foremost, Australia does have very high quality geological storage. And geological storage, the size, the scale, the injectivity, and the confidence that we're going to get long-term containment, we do think is certainly a big advantage that we have in Australia, and we're looking at how we can leverage that. And a very simple analogy for those who aren't as familiar with the subsurface, I mean, if you think about what makes a typical gas development high quality, if it was a gas development, potentially large, high quality reservoirs, like we would have in, say, the Northwest Shelf that feeds our LNG facility there, the same factors are going to make a CCS project to have high quality. So we think very much the same rules apply, and that's just a useful and simple way of thinking about it. And look, as I mentioned before, we think once you have the quality, that allows you to increase the rate of injection. Increasing the rate of injection ultimately leads to scale, and in the long run, increasing scale will reduce costs. Reduced costs then means that more users might look at access to the service and see it as being economically viable to pursue use of the service. A very simple example that I sometimes use just to illustrate this concept of why scale matters. So if I was to take a pipeline and I was to double the diameter of that pipeline, the cost might, say, go up by 80 or 90%, or perhaps it doubles, but the throughput will go up by 3, 4, or 5 times, depending on pressures and length of the pipeline. And then what happens is, because the throughput is going up by much more than the cost, the unit cost goes down very, very substantially. That's a very simple way to think about why scale drives down cost. The challenge that we have up front, of course, is trying to match that scale to what the demand is going to be, given the nascency of the market. I think if we had 100% certainty in future market, that would allow us to optimize projects, of course, and make them as large as possible. But what we look to do is make sure it's matched to what we're seeing within the market, as well as our own use cases. Okay, I'll get you to go to the next slide. Yeah, so this is the Angel project. It's a very practical example of how large-scale CCS could work. So Angel is a depleted offshore gas field. It produced around 2 trillion cubic feet of gas over more than a decade of its operational life. And as a result, we have the production history for this field. And that production history gives us exceptional knowledge of the subsurface characteristics, which we're able to then use in our CO2 injection modelling. There's really 3 key characteristics of Angel that are going to matter for competitiveness. First of all, it's a very high quality reservoir and it has a very high quality and well-defined seal. And the way I explain Angel, it's a little bit like if you imagine a sand dune, and that sand dune was encased in concrete. That's a little bit like the seal that we have for Angel. It's basically a 4-way structure, and the CO2 will get stored in the middle, much like the gas was stored before it was produced. Because of that large storage capacity, we have the ability to expand it substantially. So initially, we would target in the region of 5 million tonnes per annum, depending on customer demand. But potentially, in time, we would look to expand that as more customers required access to the service. It also has some existing infrastructure. There's port facilities at the Northwest Shelf that can be repurposed for import of liquid CO2. So we do think that's a big advantage, having the established infrastructure in place that we can repurpose. And of course, all the facilities that are required onshore, you can see in the graphic there, we can fit them around the balance of the LNG facility that we have there. In terms of project maturity, it's currently pre-FEED. The pre-FEED engineering is largely complete. And then, as I mentioned, the joint venture is currently positioning this as a hub for both domestic and international decarbonisation efforts. And it'll be able to take CO2 from local hard-to-abate industrial facilities in Western Australia, and that will be delivered via a domestic pipeline, as well as international sources that would be delivered by ship, as I noted earlier. We think, and again, just to really drive home this concept of hubs, they allow multiple customers to share infrastructure, which drives down unit costs. I think I used the pipeline example before, but that applies to port infrastructure. It applies to many other things, as well as delivery pipelines as well. And that's why, from our perspective, market engagement is just as important as the engineering. And the more customers that are able to access the service, the lower the cost will be for all users of the service. So, it really is that combination of geology, the injectivity, the confidence in the data that enables that scale is what makes a project like this competitive. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. Look, CO2 sequestration projects, particularly offshore projects, are fundamentally very similar to what you would see in a typical oil and gas development that's tied back to an onshore facility. The key components are the pipelines, the subsea infrastructure, the wells, as well as any storage and compression facilities or onshore pipelines that are required to get the CO2 to the facility. And of course, because of that, there is a significant capital outlay at the front to establish these projects. The capital cost is, of course, reduced if infrastructure can be repurposed. So there's certainly advantages there. But unfortunately, that's not always technically feasible. And sometimes the infrastructure that may be well suited for a CO2 service is still being used for a gas service. So it's not always the case that these projects can repurpose infrastructure, but certainly projects that have access to infrastructure to repurpose, there are some benefits to that. And of course, these initial projects, once they get established, because they will then have that foundation infrastructure in the long run, when they do look to expand, the expansion costs end up being much cheaper because they're able to leverage the infrastructure from the foundation investment. So I think this really starts to paint the story of why scale in the long run will ultimately see average cost for sequestration decline. And then this chart represents the concept. So we've got capacity relative to cost per tonne of CO2. And you can see as you start to approach 5 million tonnes per annum, there's a very dramatic reduction in cost. Now, of course, that depends on the length of your pipeline as well. So that of course, is a very significant factor. But even with longer pipelines, as the scale starts to go up, it becomes less and less significant relative to the overall cost. And actually, you know, when I look at this chart, I even think that going from 5 to 10, there is potentially even a little bit more of an improvement from 5 to 10 than has been represented here as well. You know, so I do think that some of these early projects, maybe around 5 million tonnes per annum expandable to 10, feels about the right size and capacity. And I do think it certainly matches what's been signalled by our energy trading partners, as well as what we're seeing domestically within Australia. Okay, how are we going for time? So I think that's the last slide that I had for today. Perhaps what I'll leave you with is countries, our energy trading partners, the likes of Japan, Singapore, Korea, potentially others as well, are signalling long-term nationally determined contributions to deliver those NDCs. They have needs for carbon capture and storage. But of course, they might face land constraints, storage constraints, infrastructure constraints, as well as accessibility to sequestration stores domestically. And we do believe that Australia can be a regional trading partner by combining geology infrastructure as well as project delivery capability to support those customers decarbonise. And as I've noted, competitiveness will very much come from scale, which is, of course, driven by the quality of the subsurface, the infrastructure, the ability to reuse. And that is why collaboration to establish these projects is going to be important. You know, not just potentially sequestration sites, customers, but as well as government to ensure that the policy is clear and is conducive to development of these projects. And look, that's why at Woodside we are investing early, and we want to help build these platforms that will allow CCS to take scale as demand accelerates. So look, with that brings me to the completion of my presentation. So thank you very much, and happy to take questions.
Thank you, Ms. Andrew. Thank you for your insights. Your remarks brought the discussion back to a crucial point. CCUS is not only about compliance and decarbonization targets, but about strategic positioning, portfolio resilience, and long-term value creation. So with that, let's move to audience questions. So question 1, what is the key to get emitters on board?
So if you think about an investment from the perspective of an emitter, they will have the same metrics as any other investor. They need to demonstrate to their shareholders that they're going to get a return on their investment. So therefore, their decisions are going to be driven by the policy environment that they operate in. And so in an Australian context, that would include the safeguard mechanism. It may also include if there's any incentives for a particular emitter, be that Australia or another country. They would also consider any price premiums their products might receive. So if they were, say, selling ammonia, they would ask the question, well, if I have a low carbon ammonia product, would I get a premium for being able to sell this product, be it domestically or overseas? And that starts to create an interesting linkage between an investment decision and the policy of multiple countries, not just the country that the emitter is currently operating in. They'll also, you know, as they're developing that business case, they'll of course have to look at what their costs are to modify their facility, and whether or not there are any requirements. So things like, you know, do they exist in an environment where they will be charged if they do continue to emit as we approach 2050? When they put together their economics, they would take all those factors into account and then ultimately develop a recommendation. So I think from the perspective of emitters, to be able to form that recommendation, policy certainty and clarity is key to enable them to be able to develop that business case and have the confidence that they want to put the capital up to invest in these projects.
Thank you, Ms. Andrew. So our next question is, what really determines whether a CCS project moves forward commercially?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think I touched on some of this in the last question, but perhaps there's a fundamental concept in economics that you're always going to compare an option to the next best alternative. In the case of CCS, it's always going to be compared to the next best alternative. And that is why it will work in some circumstances and perhaps not in others. And as I said before, hard to abate sectors, we do believe, is an area where the alternatives are perhaps not as appealing as going directly for CCS. Something else to consider is a lot of these hard to abate sector facilities, they already exist. They've already invested capital. They're looking for options to decarbonise without starting over. So CCS gives them the ability to retrofit to an existing facility without necessarily having to shut their facility in. And then there's obviously implications for their employees and everything that goes with it. So I do think from their perspective, while they might not have alternatives, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be economic for them. So fundamentally, we still want to look at ways that we can drive down the cost in the long to medium term, which will make it more economically viable for these projects. So I think the principle to take away here is it's about leveraging scale. To leverage scale, you want to have multiple emitters coming together, which is why this concept of a hub is so appealing in our view.
Thank you, Ms. Andrew, for your for your answers to these questions. And now let's move on to our final speaker. So our final speaker today is Mr. Musa Nemavar, Business Development, Industry Decarbonization, Asia-Pacific at SLB. Mr. Musa will speak about scaling CCUS in Asia-Pacific through technology innovation, subsurface expertise, and industry collaboration, drawing on the practical requirements for turning storage resources into successful projects. Hi, Ms. Musa.
Yeah, hi, Lynn, and I'm just trying to find how we share. Okay, I think I got it right.
Yeah, you got it.
Just confirm, please, that you see my screen.
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, I think I just need to apologize. Screen 3. Maybe this is the more correct one. Okay. So no, thank you, Lynn and Impact team for inviting me to this webinar, and the audience for joining and staying online. So my name is Musa Nemavar. I look after the industrial decarbonization business of SLB New Energy in APAC. What we do under our industrial decarbonization is we have CCS, carbon capture and carbon storage, that I'll elaborate a bit more. And also we do hydrogen production, hydrogen technologies investments that we have. Now, what the key points that I want you to take away from here is that the fact that as a technology provider, we have important tasks to support reducing the cost of the projects, reducing the risk of the project, de-risking them upfront. And a lot of that comes from standardization, modularization of technologies, and also making use of digital capabilities that we have. And a lot of that is coming from oil and gas experience that we have here. I'll start with some setting the scene, but I'll not take too long. The previous presenters and Hetal at the start covered it very well. Two things that I mentioned. First is, for sure, CCS is a must. We need it to decarbonize, and especially the hard to abate sector. And the fact that now oil and gas peak has prolonged comparing to 5 years ago, we will see that CCS is becoming even more relevant the more we look at the site in future. There is huge potential for CCS to cover that. And the second fact is that the gap is significant as well. So globally, we are at around 65 million ton. We need 100 times increase of capacity to reach, for example, 5-6 gigaton that IEA has set. For Asia Pacific, if we look at it, we are talking about a bigger gap. We have, combining the projects that we have in Australia and China, we are about 13 million tons according to GCCSI. And we'll look at that. Yes, we've got half of the global emissions, so we have to multiply that by 200 times to reach by 2050 in order to to have ranges around the net zero by 2050. But these are some facts and realities that we need to consider, despite the delays that we see in the market and policy changes for and against CCS. Now, coming to Asia, we have some unique aspects that it was also very well covered in previous presentations and discussion. Overall, for sure, our regulations and policies is not mature yet, and definitely there is a lot of work needs to happen there. We've got Australia, Japan that are a bit more mature. We do see development coming out of India, for example. There were some good announcements in the last 2 months, but for sure there is a lot of new developments needs to happen on that front. Another fact, distribution of major emission sources and suitable storage sites. That one is also a bit unique. You know, we've got Northeast Asia with a lot of emissions, maybe less suitable storage sites, and a lot of good storage sites like what Andrew showed in Australia. We have Malaysia, and all these storage sites are suitable. This creates, of course, the challenge of shipping, what MOL presented very well, how we are able to reduce the cost and make that a reality. This is a little bit more unique to our region in Asia that needs to be addressed. Projects are at early stage, another point, and that there is a lot of need for de-risking these projects to lower the risks upfront. And that I call it an opportunity that we have to ensure the good projects actually move forward. And the final point, Asia is what I call powerhouse of the industrial clusters. Means a lot of industries, a lot of hard to abate sector which needs to be decarbonized, and CCS is poised very well there. This is a very simple graphics. It looks like I drawn by hand, but it's just a point I want to make here is that to answer the question, when will the CCS scale or reach the scale phase? I mean, the answer is simple, of course. It's when the project economics make sense. And that's when these two lines meet and we go beyond that. The incentives or price of carbon as such is higher than the cost of CCS here. The blue line here is what we expect the government and regulatory to help us with. And the cyan line is where the technology providers and developers are working on to see how we are able to reduce the cost and meet. Now, we are not there yet for sure for majority of industries and geographies. The early projects that are being supported by government, and that is where I highlighted in yellow portion, and that needs to be there for quite a bit of time for us in Asia for sure. Even in advanced CCS region like EU, today is closer to that cross line, but still the government support is driving most of the projects around the world. Yeah. Now, with this context, I just quickly wanted to take you through two topics: storage and carbon capture. I start with storage. So when we develop storage sites, there are three key performance factors that we need to address. First, how much CO2 we can store, then at what injection rate we are able to inject that it's commercial and it's viable. And finally, that there is no leakage and we have that containment and assurance that CO2 is staying there. Yeah? The role of technology industry or the industry is to identify, measure, and characterize the reservoir storage sites to ensure that we have these information to optimize the injection performance for these long-term projects that are there, and also technologies and techniques that are able to help us to monitor the storage sites and ensure that we have containment. Now, in a little bit of more detail, in order to have effective carbon storage, we need to have precise selection. We need to do planning, development, operation, and monitoring phases go through monitoring phases of a storage development. And using the right experience, know-how, technologies is key to optimize the storage project and help with de-risking and lowering the cost. We at SLB, we are integrating a lot of geoscience, engineering, digital capabilities that we have, and also technologies to support this economical and sustainable project. Also, there is a lot of work that we do in standardization of workflows on the storage in order to have, through the entire phases of the projects that standardization is helping us with de-risking and reducing the cost. A lot of technologies that we have is coming from our comprehensive oil and gas portfolio that we've been having, including subsea, subsurface, drilling, and surface capabilities. We've been adapting a lot of technologies as well, bringing them specifically from oil and gas to CCS, adapting them. And also there are technologies that we are developing and creating specifically for CCS on the side. I wanted to just elaborate a little bit more on one aspect, MMV, monitoring, measurement, and verification, which is a very crucial component of each project. So first of all, why do we need MMV? We need MMV for three main reasons. Performance management, that is basically to know the injection performance, at what rate we are injecting, how efficient and effective we are filling the pore space. All of those connects directly to the project economics. We want it for sure for regulatory compliance as a proof that it's safe and it's good. And also, of course, the carbon accounting, that's another measure that it's a critical element of monetizing the CCS project as well. At SLB, we have a full suite of technologies that can help with the measurement, from sensors to evaluation technologies. Fiber optics, I usually like to talk about fiber optics because it's just one of the tools that we have, but we are able to, it has huge potential. We are able to acquire a lot of data and have a lot of insight into what is happening in subsurface. Key thing is what do we do with the data, how we are able to have those insights. One thing that we've been lately working on and deploying is an ecosystem that is able to integrate all of these measurements that are there at all levels, at the wellbore level, at an asset level, and provide real-time insights for CCS project. Making the reporting efficient, enabling real-time actions based on the insights that one has from the project, and then providing answers to all of the three things that I mentioned in one platform. We started calling it carbon storage monitoring, so we're deploying it to the market, and this is one angle, one of the solutions that I wanted to share with you. That we're deploying recently. So beyond that, I'll just take a few minutes also to talk to you a little bit about what we are doing in carbon capture as well. So our post-combustion carbon capture technology is offered under a brand that we have, SLB Capturi. SLB Capturi has been developing commercial carbon capture systems for a while. They have been also deploying actual plants on the ground that I'll show you. Here we have two flagship products. What we call on the left is a Just Catch product, which is a modularized design, optimized process, and a cost-efficient solution. And then on the right hand, you have a Big Catch system, which is more of a custom design and addresses millions of tons, or in areas that you have a lot of custom work you need to do about, for example, heat integration, or you've got challenging space, unique space that you need to fit the carbon capture in. Then a Big Catch becomes suitable. Just Catch is I mentioned a modular. The design has been improved so much that it's one of the lowest footprint technologies and solutions available. It comes in 100,000 tons and a 400,000 tons per annum capacity. And we've delivered actually multiple projects that I'll show you shortly as well. These are commercial products. They are based on a robust and low degradation, low emission solvent. that we have, and that helps significantly in ensuring projects are delivered at lower risk, and also the costs are lower as well. I will just take you through a few example of projects that we have. First of all, I'm sure you will all familiar with the Longship and Northern Lights project, the storage site that is offshore Norway. So we at SLB Capturi, we are pleased and proud to be providing the capture technology to 3 out of 4 emission sources that are selected. A total of 1.4 million tons of CO2 we are capturing or plan to capture, and then deliver into and will be shipped by our friends MOL to Northern Light storage site. Here, 3 projects that I quickly show you is Brevik. Brevik is the first cement plant that ever was decarbonized at commercial scale. That is a 400,000 tons of capture capacity. I'll show you some pictures in the next slide. The other 2 projects, Ørsted is close to 500,000 tons. Actually, it's 430,000 tons of capture capacity. There we are deploying 5 units of our modular technology because there are multiple power plants there. And then Celsio is a waste-to-energy plant, 350 kilotons per annum. We're deploying modular technology of 400,000 tons in that. And all of these, the merit is how you're able to deploy fast, how you're able to reduce the costs and deliver projects significantly, effectively through the process. Brevik is delivered. Ørsted, we are we've concluded the mechanical work, and it's going to start commissioning, hot commissioning, and Celsio, we started construction as we speak. Now, maybe quickly through a couple of slides on pictures. This is the Brevik CCS. It's a very old cement plant that you see by Heidelberg. It's, I think, close to 100 years old. And it's a very unique design we had to come up with. So we had to come up with a big catch, a custom design that it fits into such a complex environment. It's a very energy efficient. We were able to maximize the use of existing energy in order to make the plant close to energy neutral, the carbon capture, and also the CO2 capture started June last year, and this is the first CO2 that is being shipped to Northern Lights. The next project that I'll quickly show you is a CCU project. This is a Just Catch. This is the modular technology, and the key thing that I like to highlight always is the size of that Just Catch system. Probably you will look where the Just Catch is located in the picture. This light green color is a Just Catch system, and what you have is a waste-to-energy plant, waste-to-energy plant that is sitting there. And flue gas is directed to the carbon capture system, and then CO2 is separated, it exits from here, and then it moves into to the additional facilities for liquefaction and temporary storage. The CO2 of this project is actually gets shipped, trucked from this location into nearby greenhouse planting facilities and some other beverage companies. Yeah, this is a very interesting project because as a project, it has multiple sources of revenue for the emitter. They sell electricity, they sell the CO2, also they sell the heat that it comes with the power plant as well, and many more. So it's a good example that we've delivered last year. These projects, of course, they give us a lot of data points as well, and that has been helping us in improving the current and next version of these plants that we are developing. And this is a great advantage to have. In a summary, I just want to close it on the fact that we as a company, we have the capability in carbon capture and carbon storage. Our storage brand is Sequestri and our capture plant is Capturi. If you have any questions, please let me know. If there is any interest in any of the services that we have, don't hesitate to reach out by email or anyhow. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Musa. Thank you for your highly practical and timely presentation. You make clear that while momentum is growing, deployment still needs to scale dramatically, particularly in Asia-Pacific. We also heard that successful storage projects rely on getting the fundamentals right, capacity injectivity and containment, and on building robust digitally enabled MMV and MRV systems that improve time to FID, strengthen compliance, and support long-term performance. And thank you again. We now turn to questions from our audiences. So the first question is, what is your view on the potential of post-conversation carbon capture from LNG liquefaction turbines as a decarbonization pathway?
Oh, thanks, Lynn. And that's a very specific question, an interesting question on LNG liquefaction. For sure, there are few ways to decarbonize LNG liquefaction, and CCS is one of them, along the other efficiency upgrades, or maybe some part of it can be electrified. On the CCS front, for sure, yes, this is a big scope 1 emission, and it can be, it's a good target for retrofit with a carbon capture potentially. The catch, though, is that these turbines, the exhaust of this or the flue gas, it comes with low concentration CO2. So when we compare the different industries, maybe it's not the cheapest industry to decarbonize, but it's doable. Now it gets a lot more maybe attractive if we have storage, a potential CO2 storage sites in nearby. Like a storage hub is nearby, then we can just use those facilities to store. Or another key factor is to reduce the cost is if there are excess or waste heat or energy available, that it helps the carbon capture to be more efficient. Now, yeah, in summary, yes, it's doable, it's possible. Carbon capture is a solution to that. We at SLB actually we can deploy modular technology in these environments. Our Just Catch 100 and 400 probably can combine with that. They can combine multiple LNG terrains or LNG units, liquefaction units, and decarbonize them in step by step or maybe in sequence, multiple of them at a time. But it's doable, yeah.
Thank you for your answers to that question. So our last question is, across the CCUS value chain, where do you think conversations are still too high level when what the market really needs now is much more practical detail?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for sure, there's a lot of high-level topics and discussions. In each of, we need definitely to get, as they say, the devil is in the detail. We need to have the detail of each phase or element of a CCS project. Maybe quickly, if I would mention on a storage, proof is vital. We need to actually understand really how much CO2 we are able to, what is our capability, how much we are able to inject, what sort of technologies is efficient and economical to deploy when it comes to monitoring, the details about the liability, the long-term customers, all of that definitely needs to be sorted out for a project to start. Transportation, for sure, there is a lot of we need a standardization. I think there was a lot of good discussion by MOL about how we standardize and help with the process. And then cost of shipping, of course, needs to be addressed. On capture, cost is still a hurdle, definitely, for many industries. So now is it by utilizing and integrating any waste energy or waste heat that we have in order to reduce the cost of capture, or it's by looking at advanced and commercializing advanced technologies. There are ways, maybe as an example, I can mention a NAS non-aqueous solvent that we are developing with our partners. It's a technology that requires a lot less heat for the desorption process, and that means you've got a lower cost of carbon capture. So definitely those needs to be addressed and worked out in further detail. And of course, on the commercial end as well, projects needs to be bankable, the contracts needs to be bankable, and for that, it relies on a lot of detailed work on that to be sorted out as well. Yeah. A lot of, I say a lot of this work is already probably being done or have been done, a lot of it, but for sure to scale it at all fronts, we need all the details to be sorted out here.
Thank you. Thank you for your very detailed answers to the question. And now let's make our final, closing remark. So thank you to all of our speakers for a highly insightful session, and thank you to our audience for your thoughtful participation throughout today's webinar. Across the last nearly 2 hours, we have heard a consistent message. Asia-Pacific has ingredients to scale CCUS, but progress depends on confidence. Confidence in policy, confidence in infrastructure, confidence in business models, confidence in technology, and subsurface performance. And just as importantly, confidence in cross-border partnerships that can connect emitters, transport systems, and storage resources into a functioning regional ecosystem. This is exactly why today's discussion matters, and why it connects so strongly with the wider agenda of Carbon Capture APEC Summit 2026. We look forward to continuing these conversations in Melbourne on 8th to 9th July, where the industry will come together to turn practical lessons and emerging partnerships into next phase of delivery. On behalf of Leader Associates, thank you once again for joining us. We sincerely appreciate the time, insights, and support of all our speakers, sponsors, partners, and attendees. We hope to see you at CCAS 2026 in Melbourne. Thank you.